Hello everyone. I've been having conversations with Jehovah's Witnesses for on and off for quite a number of years now, and I have to say they're always good for a surprise or two. Fairly early on in my conversations with them, I discovered that they have the view that only the 144,000, or those with the heavenly hope, those who are going to be with the Lord in heaven, are born again and have the spirit of sonship. But it's only been relatively recently that I've discovered some other interesting things about the 144,000. I've discovered, for example, that it's only the 144,000 who are included in the new covenant which God has made, and also it's only the 144,000 who have Jesus as their mediator. So in other words, if you are a Jehovah's Witness not belonging to the 144,000, Jesus is not your mediator. And I've also been aware that there's been a certain amount of disagreement within the society itself recently. I don't know how widespread this is, you hear differing reports, but certainly there have been some disfellowshippings because some witnesses have been unable to reconcile this view with, for example, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 5 and 6, "For there is one God and one mediator also between God and men, the man Christ Jesus, who gave himself as a ransom for all, the testimony given at the proper time." With YouTube, of course, you're always up against the time factor. You've only got at the very most 10 minutes. So I thought I'd just try something out and do a part 1 and a part 2, simply looking at the old and the new covenants which God made. And here in part 1, of course, I'm going to be looking at the old covenant, and really only two simple questions. Who was included in the old covenant? And was there an outward physical sign which indicated being part of it? Okay, so first of all the question, who was included in the Old Covenant? The simple answer is everybody. The entire Old Testament people of God were included in the Old Covenant, not just, if you like, an elite or a subdivision of people. Deuteronomy chapter 29. I'll just read this passage out. Deuteronomy 29. "These are the words of the covenant which the Lord commanded Moses to make with the sons of Israel in the land of Moab, besides the covenant which he had made with them at Horeb. And Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, You have seen all that the Lord did before your eyes. You stand today, all of you, before the Lord your God, your chiefs, your tribes, your elders, and your officers, even all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and the alien who is within your camps, from the one who chops your wood to the one who draws your water, that you may enter into the covenant with the Lord your God, and into his oath which the Lord your God is making with you today, in order that he may establish you today as his people, and that he may be your God, just as he spoke to you and as he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Right, so that's very clear. Of course, the Old Covenant included everyone, from the chiefs right down to the children and the servants. I believe this is reinforced by Paul in the New Testament, in Corinthians, Paul writing to the Christians in Corinth, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, "For I do not want you to be unaware, brethren, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they were drinking from a spiritual rock which followed them, and the rock was Christ." There was a sign, an outward physical sign of God's old covenant, In Genesis chapter 17, again I'll read this out. And you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be the sign of the covenant between me and you. And every male among you who is 8 days old shall be circumcised throughout your generations. A servant who is born in the house or who is bought with money from any foreigner who is not of your descendants, a servant who is born in your house or who is bought with your money shall surely be circumcised. Thus shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. But an uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Right, so what have we got so far? In the Old Covenant, all of the people were part of the covenant, the Old Covenant. Within the Old Covenant, you did have different functions, different anointings, if you want to call it that, different posts, different authorities. For example, the Levites were the priestly class, and even within the Levites you had further subdivisions entrusted with different roles and different responsibilities. But all of the people, regardless of role or ministry, all were included in the Old Covenant. And that there was a physical outward sign of being included in the covenant, and that was circumcision of all the males. Again, all of them, not just a subdivision or an elite. Oh, right, that's enough for part one. In part two, I want to go on and look at the New Covenant and ask the same simple questions. How does God see the New Covenant? Who is included in the New Covenant? And is there an outward physical sign corresponding with circumcision, which indicates that someone is part of the New Covenant? Okay, God bless.